I'm going to say one thing. Fighting styles in GPO should not be independent. So, but like, I can't, with these fighting styles in the game, act just like devil fruits. And it's just plain up stupid. Back then, things were simple. You would have Blackleg, and you would have Rokishiki. Blackleg added a block break. Rokishiki added mobility. Okay. You could still get Geppo from Coco Island. Okay. In YBA, they just had simple things that had unique things, like with vampirism, there was freezing. There was, let's see, boxing that added tough skin. Hamon that added damage, mouse 1 damage buff. Spin had like long range. And they just added for your PvP. They were just good, and not like some things needed a rework, like spin. But the issue with both games now is that they both have fighting styles that are so dependent on their own that they don't even need fruits or stand. Now, if you're gonna, it's fine if you are a fan of fighting styles. Sure, you can go in like fighting styles, but fighting styles, if it's a fighting style oriented game, should have fighting style oriented moves and then extra moves with a stand. And in this game, GPO or YBA, they could either have it fighting style orientated or devil fruit orientated. Now, fighting styles in both games are solely independent on their own. They are OP, and you don't even need a fruit to run them anymore, or a stand. And personally, you can't just take the max amount of ingredients and shove them into a bowl and just mix a bunch of chemicals as much as you want in a bowl. You need to be precise with how much you add. You can't have a fighting style that's like a fruit, just as much as a fruit, and you can't have a fruit that's just as much as a fighting style. You need to have a balance. Now, fighting styles back then in both games used to work in sync with each other. They used to work like a British guy back in the old days wearing his top hat. It would add as an accessory to him. PvP was done in GPO and YBA back then with fruits and mouse ones, and then we used fighting styles as an accessory. It added a bonus. In YBA, Hamon added as a bonus extra damage. Boxing added tough skin and health bonuses. Vampirism added hyper regen. In GPO, Rokishiki added a dash. And in GPO, Blackleg also added a block break. That's a combo extender. It added, and in YBA, Jawbreaker was a block break that added to the stand, and Eye Gouge added to the blinding as a stun. It added as a stun. And then there was an extra barrage move. Now in both games, they have suffered the problem of making fighting styles entirely independent on their own. Okay? A good example I could give is, instead of a top hat going on a rich guy and adding as an accessory to him, they are now making a fully fledged suit. They're giving the rich guy the top hat, and they're giving him a suit and pants. It's an example of how, instead of it just adding as an accessory, it adds an entirely new thing that is itself on its own. It's its own category. It's its own thing. Now, fighting styles in YBA have so many moves, and have some of the moves are taking away the uniqueness that other stands might have. Like, a stand might have a counter, and it might be special because that person might have a counter with his stand, because, and he has, some people are like, oh, watch out for him. He has a stand that's special because it has a counter. Or he has a fruit that has a counter. Maybe, for example. Now, in YBA, they ruined that by adding a counter to the fighting styles. I'm not being specific, I'm talking about in general. In YBA, they added so many moves that fighting styles are like their own ability, and you don't need a weapon. Now, with GPO, fighting styles are also becoming their own thing. Cyborg, for example, has its own flight. Why does a fighting style have a flight? Now, if it was just one special thing that made it unique, sure, that's fine. But they also added a thing that makes you heal, a fucking combo extender, which is fine. But then they add a beatdown of an ult. They add a fucking move. So many extra moves that you don't even need. Usually you use moves. You use things with your stand, or you use things with your fruit to coincide with your fighting style. Like, you would, back then, you would use 5 mouse 1s, and then Collier, 5 mouse 1s, lightning paralyzation maybe, and then 4 mouse 1s and a trident impale. It was just a simple combo, okay? Now, there are fighting styles that have many combo extenders and many block breaks, like Dragon Claw has 4 block breaks. 4 fucking block breaks. Now imagine a fighting style with 4 block breaks, also and 2 extra moves, and imagine 4 block breaks paired with Mochi, or a fruit that has, or Gura that has many block breaks, alongside with a weapon that has many block breaks. In GPO, there are so many weapons that block break. There are so many fighting styles that have so many abilities that block break, and there are so many fruits that block break. That, like, we jumped the gun from 1 block break from Blackleg to 4 block breaks. Anyway, back to this. You can't take a devil fruit that has so many block breaks, then take another fighting style that's also independent on its own by having 4 block breaks, and having a weapon that has maybe another 2 block breaks. There's a weapon in the game called Roger's Sword, which has 4 moves. Imagine pairing Roger's Sword with Mochi that has the most moves in the game. You pair it with Mochi, and you pair it with either Dragon Claw or Cyborg. I'm sorry, but I'm fine with maybe swords having many abilities. I was irritated about that. This is like my take 5 recording. But okay, swords can be special. Fighting styles, though, they're supposed to add to your PvP. You can't have fighting styles become solely independent. And if fighting styles are solely independent on their own, you shouldn't have fruits that are extremely unindependent. Because the way I see it is, fruits are independent, fighting styles are independent, and in YBA, stands are independent, and fighting styles are way too independent. Fighting styles shouldn't be as independent as a fruit or as a stand. They should be less independent so you can use them to benefit your gameplay. Now, back then in YBA, people were trying to kill bosses with only boxing. It was like really interesting how people could try to defeat all bosses just with a fighting style, because you couldn't really do that. You could, but it was very tough. But like now in in YBA, you can kill all bosses with any fighting style, because they're like their own ability. They have so many abilities in them, and they're all just OP in their own category that makes them not even as an accessory, but as their own ability. And fighting styles, you could either have them as an ability or as an accessory, but you can't have them as an ability with other things like a stand have as an ability. Anyway, main conclusion from this is that fruits and stands shouldn't, stands, people, the owners of these games, Foyu and Uzu, should find out if they want stands or fruits to be dominant, and then they want the fighting styles to be the low accessories that add to PvP, or if if stands should be not dominant and fighting styles should be the OP ones, but the fruits are toned down a lot and nerfed a lot. Like, you can't have an OP stand in the game and an OP spec in the game and being able to pair them together. That's a recipe for disaster. You can't pair a fighting style that has 4 block breaks with a fruit that has so many block breaks and then pair them together. That's a recipe for disaster. You can't do that. Like, back then in YBA, there was 1 block break, Jawbreaker, and then Eye Gouge, and then Boxing Barrage. In GPO, it was just Collier. That was 1 block break. It just added as a block break to your PvP. It added to your PvP by being able to block break your opponent. And then Rokushiki added to be able to dash around your opponent. Now, you're not only able to dash around your opponent or block break your opponent, you're able to literally block break your opponent 4 times with 4 moves that can block break. You now have a fucking beatdown. Now you have a flight. I'm sorry, but a fighting style with a flight? That's just fucking dumb. Like, I'm sorry, but if you want fighting styles to do a lot of damage, then make devil fruits do less damage, like a lot less damage, and fix devil fruits and make them less independent. Because the way stands, let's just be honest, stands and fruits in YBA and GPO are independent. You can probably win a game with just a stand. You can probably do a lot of things with just a stand in YBA. You can beat the story. You can do everything. But now and even in GPO, you could just grind in the game, and you can do Kraken farming, or you could do dungeons with just a fruit. Now, you don't even need just a fruit for some things. Now there are fighting styles that are as capable as a fruit or stand would be. Fighting styles are becoming just as capable as fruits and stands. And either they shouldn't be, or either they should be, but then fruits should not be capable as much as fighting styles. So you need to get the proportions right. You can't have fighting styles doing insane damage and stands and fruits doing insane damage, because people are going to spam their stand, do so much damage with their stand, and then switch to their fighting style when their stand's on cooldown, and then spam their fighting style, and then go back to spamming their stand. And it's same in GPO. You can spam your fruits and then spam your fighting styles and just circulate between them. And you shouldn't be able to do that. Back then in YBA, you couldn't just spam your fighting style moves. You had to use them with your stand. You had to use them together. You couldn't just randomly use a jawbreaker and eye gouge. Like, you needed to use something in order to do it. You needed to either land a block break with one of your stand moves. You can't just run up to someone and use Jawbreaker. You needed to use one of your moves on your stand. And then while you use your stand, you use your fighting style as an ability to help you get things off. Now, instead of just using them, then you should use then. Fighting styles are just becoming spam. You can just spam them and just use them without even a stand. In GPO, like back then, Pika is dog shit for PvP. But a Pika can get a fighting style that's like it's its own devil fruit, and it can get a weapon that has 4 moves and can solely crush an enemy that has a fruit like Mochi and Rokushiki because, the fighting style is just better than a double fruit. Now, sure, that's fine if a Pika is using maybe a fighting style because, its fruit's not good at PvP. But imagine a fruit that's good at PvP while also having a fighting style. And another sword that has 4 moves. Like, I mean, that's just not balanced. I think the way to fix this was that you would make more fighting styles, less OP, less moves, less block breaks, less beatdowns, no fucking flights. Or if there is a flight, maybe down a bit some of the other moves. Like, I have Cyborg and it's so fucking OP. It's stupid, okay? Now, why should I be able... Anyway, it's just dumb. Imagine having 4 block breaks with Dragon Claw and pairing that with having block breaks with Gura, okay? Then having 4 block breaks with Dragon Claw, which is its own thing, and then also being able to have another few block breaks with a weapon. See the problem? It's either, the fruit has a lot of block breaks and the fighting style has not a lot of block breaks, or either the fighting style has a lot of block breaks, and it has a lot of moves, and the fruit doesn't have a lot of block breaks. They should find a pattern, keep the same pattern, and not fuck up the pattern. Like, my idea to fix this problem was would be the same thing back in what they did with GPO, YBA. Back then, fighting styles were just simple. Fighting styles don't need to look cool and have so many moves and have so many block breaks for them to be appealing. They just need to be fun and have something unique about them and have a unique distinction between them. Maybe you could add a fighting style that adds a damage reduction but has only 1 block break. Maybe you could add a damage reduction on Rokushiki. Maybe he could add a giant one. I don't know, but the point is that the old specs in YBA were just accessories. They added to your PvP. Now specs in YBA, you don't even need a stand. Specs are do insane amounts of shit. And by themselves, you don't even need anything with a spec. You have a spec with Vampire in YBA. There's an auto combo, and you can just do half of someone's health with, and it's just the spec alone. And on top of doing half of their health with just a spec, then you can go to using your stand to also do half of their health. So no, specs shouldn't be OP. or if they should be OP, then fruits and sands shouldn't be OP. But we all know that the main thing from One Piece and JoJo are the stands and fruits. So, it's just self-explanatory. Like, specs shouldn't... Okay, main conclusion here is specs shouldn't be able to be their own abilities. They should not be independent. They should work and coincide with stands or fruits. They shouldn't be able to rely on themselves solely, independently, on their own. They shouldn't be able to do that. They shouldn't be able to... Because someone can just use Cyborg and a Trident or Roger Sword, and they'll be able to beat someone in a 1v1 that's using Rokushiki and Mochi. That's just stupid. Fighting styles shouldn't be like that. I'm sorry, but fix fighting styles. Make them have something unique about them, but don't add so much that makes them so OP. They shouldn't have so much OP shit about them. They should just be accessories. I'm sorry. Either they're accessories or they're not, depending on what anime game it is. But on GPO and YBA, my opinion, just make fighting styles have a block break and a unique thing that makes them have their ability. Vampirism. They added vampirism to the game. They could have just added a block break, maybe some unique, not so OP moves, and then added passive healing, a higher regeneration. But no, they decide to not add passive regenerating and add a bunch of ludicrously annoying fucking moves to deal with, while they also have a fruit to deal with as well. Like, why should I deal with their fruit as a problem and their fruit and their fighting style? It should, it becomes harder to deal with. Anyway, that was a long rant. Main conclusion, just please stop making fighting styles their own ability. Okay? Like, I know they look cool. I know they have their own beatdowns. I know they have their own flights. But it's a fighting style, guys. Do we really need a flight that takes away the uniqueness of some fruits just because they wanted to add a flight? They take away the uniqueness of a Mera and Suna flight by adding a fighting style flight that you can just access with Cyborg now. So what's the point in the cool Mera flight and Suna flight that you can use for dungeons now? That just made the unique thing about Mera and Suna go away. Anyway. Fighting styles. Mainly. Yeah. Anyway, this is it. So I'll see you guys.